Hi everyone, welcome to Brand Builder Sessions. I am here today live at Keg & Case with the founder of Kickled Mary, Brian Cadwell. I'm so excited to be talking with you today about your brand, Kickled Mary. So I love this story. This is really like a family, like legacy generational story for you. So for 5 generations, your family has been making pickles from a recipe that was passed down by your Polish ancestors. Making pickles was a big part of your childhood and continues to be a passion that your wife, daughter, and many of your friends now share. So just tell me that story a little bit.
So yeah, like I said, we started out when I was a kid. We used to get together as a family. We'd make the pickles, and it was, kind of a big tradition. We do it every year. My grandfather would go pick out the produce, and we would sit around and just make pickles for a day. And everybody kind of had their role, and we'd make typically around 200 jars that we would bring to that we'd just give away to friends and family. And so my grandfather passed away many years ago. We stopped the tradition, and about 20 years ago I asked my grandmother for the recipe. So we went through and we started making the pickles out of our house, my wife and I did.
Yeah.
And we would usually make about 80 jars every year, and we just give it away to friends and family. And over the years, people would always tell us that these are the best pickles they've ever had. So finally, about 3 years ago, we made an extra 250 jars. We brought them over to a small farmer's market in Bayport, Minnesota.
Was this just like, hey, we just want to test this out and see?
Just totally just testing it out. Because, like I said, people would always tell us they were the best they've ever had.
Yeah.
And we thought, let's give it a shot and see where it goes. So we made an extra 250 jars. We brought them over there, and it's a small farmer's market. We sold out in 3 days. The first day we sold 45 jars. The second day we sold 54 jars. The third day we sold 95 jars.
And what were you thinking at that point?
We're like, wow, we're actually onto something. So that summer, we actually, with a tremendous amount of help from friends and family, have you ever made pickles?
I have not.
So there's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So this number for those that have made pickles will appreciate the magnitude of this, but we made another 3,200 jars out of our house.
Okay, this sounds like a lot.
It is, and it was, and we, again, we have a lot of good friends, we have, a lot of good family. Thankfully, we have a big house, and we were able to go through and do all that. In the meantime, after that, I went through and started working on what's called an acidified food license.
Okay.
So we can actually go through and make pickles that are actually suitable for a retail store shelf.
And you were able to do this out of your house, or did you have to rent commercial kitchen space, or what did that look like?
First, it was getting the acidified food license,
Yeah.
and I've never gone to college a day in my life, except for, actually, I had one course and I didn't get along with the professor. We didn't see eye to eye, and that was the end of my college career.
That was it for you.
So yeah, then I had to basically take a course here for the acidified food course to understand the microbiology and the science of what takes place in this jar. Because the biggest concern is, especially pickles, Bloody Marys, the biggest concern is botulism. So
Right.
obviously you don't want to kill anybody when you're doing this stuff. So it was good to get through that, and it was stressful, but I got through it. Then we went through and we rented space inside of a commercial kitchen, so we could actually start making the pickles for a retail environment. And so we did that. We made probably about 3,000 jars, and by the time we started talking to Kowalski's and stores like that, they want 35% gross margin. Our cost was $6.50 a jar. They want a price point around $10, and by the time it's all said and done, there's no money to be made.
So this is a really interesting point, and I see this happen pretty often with founders, that they have stories like yours where, it's a family recipe or it's something that they've, made for friends and family. It has done really well, and so they think they're going to make a product out of it, and they go to market with it without really actually understanding how the channel operates and what the standards are around promotions and distribution and pricing and how to get their product to market. And by the time they actually go through all of that, they realize what you realized is, wow, I'm actually either not making any money on this, or I'm like losing money every time I sell a jar of pickles. So this is what you guys kind of came to.
It's kind of funny because you start on a path in life and you don't know where it's going to end up, right? We started out as a pickle company, now we're a Bloody Mary company. So like I was saying, we realized that there was no money to be made with the pickles. So in the meantime, we would make pickled beans and pickled asparagus out of our house.
Okay.
So my wife and I like to do a lot of charitable giving. So she would make baskets for charitable events, silent auction type stuff.
Right.
And so we would put somebody else's Bloody Mary mix in our baskets. And in the meantime, people are always telling us that they would take the brine from our pickles and put that in their Bloody Marys. So we wanted to come up with our own, recipe. And about 2 years ago, the farmer that we get our cucumbers from, he ran out of cucumbers, and he finally said, he said, I got a bumper crop of tomatoes. You need to figure out something to do with tomatoes. So my wife and I sat down on a Saturday afternoon, and I started out with probably about 150 pounds of tomatoes. And I said, come hell or high water, we're going to figure out a recipe on this thing. And so we sat there for about 10 hours that day adding stuff and, kind of seeing what we liked. And typically my wife and I are Bloody Mary fans.
Yeah.
So we thought if we can come up with a recipe that we like, others would like it as well.
Right.
And plus it's based off the brine, because that's what a lot of people use for their Bloody Marys. So we worked on it, and we finally came up with a recipe that we liked. We made an extra 110 jars out of our house that we were going to bring up to a small festival in Emily, Minnesota.
All right, wait, because I want to hear this story, but I want to actually stay in this moment where the pickles don't work at scale, right? You're not going to make any money on it. You didn't go out and go, I want to make a Bloody Mary mix. That wasn't necessarily exactly what happened to you, right? But I think this is such a good point for entrepreneurs and other founders to think of, is you had this opportunity that was presented to you. You had this farmer go, look, I've got all these tomatoes. What can you do with it? You guys were already using other folks' Bloody Mary mixes in these charitable gift baskets you were giving. It fits in real well with the pickle juice. So did you at that point think, okay, I want to create a Bloody Mary that I can take to retail? Or is it just, I just want to play with these tomatoes? And
Actually, he was about trying to figure out how do we bring another product to retail. Because once we started, you've got a lot of time and money invested in something like this. Right. Once you build the brand, you start the company. There's the acidified food license. It's like, okay, we got to figure out something we can do with all this.
Yeah.
So like I said, that's where we went through and we made another 110 jars. We brought up to the small festival in Emily, Minnesota.
And it's this same formula?
It was the exact same formula, yep.
Okay.
And so the night before we were going into the festival, we actually went into a bar, and my uncle happens to know the owner very well. And so my uncle had just tried it for the first time that day and really loved it.
Right.
So he's like, hey, he said to the owner, he said, you really got to try this Bloody Mary mix.
Yeah.
And so we didn't have any with us, but my uncle's place is only about 10 minutes from the restaurant that we were at. So I'm an opportunist, so I ran back and I picked up a jar and I brought it back and had the owner try it. His bartender made him a Bloody Mary, very stoic fellow. I looked at him, and then finally after about 10 seconds I said, what do you think? And he's like, wow. He's like, that's awesome. And so
how did that feel to you?
Oh, it felt great, because at that point we talked for another 20 minutes, and he actually ended up telling me that he wanted me to he wants to replace his Bloody Mary mix with ours. So before we even sold a jar direct to consumer, we're already going into 2 restaurants, because he has another restaurant in Minnesota. So it was like, holy cow, we're actually onto something. And so I told him, I said, look, it's going to be about 4 months before I can go through, because I haven't even registered with the FDA yet to make that recipe. So we had to go through, we had to get registered with the FDA. He wanted it in 5-gallon buckets, so I had to register that with the FDA as well. And so it took about 4 months, but we actually ended up, his first order was 40 of the 5-gallon buckets and 240 quart jars, because he was selling the quart jars off the shelf as well.
So he was doing both, like food service and like retail products.
Yep.
Okay, so you had that, then what came next?
So then it was, once we got registered with the FDA, then it was starting to work on retail channels, and just kind of going out and, doing our own sales. My wife and I still work a full-time job even today. She owns her own company, so we'd get out and whenever we could, we work markets.
Yep.
Obviously, everybody was impacted by COVID, but, we had started this just before COVID. And before COVID, we went into 7 restaurants almost within 2 months, because what they love is they don't have to add anything. They just add vodka and serve it. They don't have to doctor it up. And it's, for bars and restaurants, again, they don't, they want something that's easy to make.
Right.
So all they do is, like I said, add vodka and serve it. And as of today, we're in about 80 different retail stores, outlets, and 20 different restaurants. So it's we actually just recently hired a salesperson down in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and she's been doing great for us. She's already got it.
Is this your first Employee as part of Kickled Mary?
Yep. The first person who's working pretty much full time.
Right.
We have a lot of friends and family that still help out. Yep.
Yes.
And they're still working markets for us.
Yeah.
Because we, that's the big thing for us. With a new product like this, is getting sampling, right? Is getting people to taste it.
Right.
And that's where we spend a lot of time on markets, just getting it out there. And we've seen in certain retail outlets where we first started out, we're outselling our competitors anywhere between 3 to 1 and 6 to 1. So it's like getting the sample.
How do you know that? Where do you get that sales data?
I actually talk to the retail outlets.
You do,
yes.
And they give you that information.
Yep. Because it's knowing what your numbers are is a critical component.
It's a huge piece of it, right? And so the retail that you have right now, is it typically like liquor store retail?
Liquor stores, grocery stores.
You're doing grocery stores.
We do a lot of boutique shops.
Yep.
Renard's Cheese over in Sturgeon Bay, Door County.
Right.
So we've got about 5 different stores up there. My wife just got us into Newski's Bacon today.
Yeah.
If you're familiar with them, they're kind of famous across the country for their applewood smoked bacon.
Yeah.
So but it's we have a lot of fun with it. And at some point we're working on figuring out distribution. So because we've got a lot of different retail outlets across even Minnesota and Wisconsin, like
Right.
northern Minnesota, where they want to bring us in, but it's kind of like, well, how do you get your product up there and still make some profit?
And still make some money.
So,
And there are a lot of retailers who, while they might buy from you direct, would prefer that they get you from one of their primary distributor
Absolutely.
partners.
Yep. It makes it easier for them.
Yeah. Okay. Talk to me about what's actually inside this jar, because I will tell you that, and you probably hear this all the time, right? That this is unlike any other Bloody Mary mix that I've ever tried. And I think a funny story, so at our launch party here at Brand Builders, my mom, you got my mom, maybe your wife did, got my mom to actually try this, and my mom does not like tomatoes, like she'll eat pasta, but like does not like tomatoes, will not drink tomato juice, and she tried it, and now she tells everyone who walks through the market they have to buy it because it's one of the best things she's ever tried. So what is so special about what's in this jar?
It's all fresh. It's all natural. I mean, it's typically your Bloody Marys are made with a lot of artificial ingredients, a lot of fillers. They're trying to get by with something that's extremely cheap that they can make a profit on.
Right.
And that's not what we tried to accomplish here. We wanted something that's all fresh. It's all natural. I've got a friend who he's a little bit of a nut job, but he ran a 5K a day for an entire year. But he drinks. He probably has about 4 ounces of this every day. Helps him rehydrate after his running. But it's just, again, there's 3 different types of fresh peppers in here, fresh onion, garlic, radish, and it's just all natural. A lot of people use it to cook with. We have, if you take a half a cup of that, put it into a pound of hamburger, and make patties with it and grill them. I mean, people tell us all the time it's one of the best burgers they've ever had.
Wait, so this is not just to make a Bloody Mary?
A lot of people, like I said, with the burgers, we actually had a woman, I told a woman about this about 2 weeks ago when we were at a festival, and she sampled it for the first time that day. She took the jar home, she made some patties, she sent me a picture of her 6-year-old son, and she said, my son doesn't eat hamburgers, and he ate 2 of these. So it's, we've actually had people win chili cook-offs using this as the base for their chili. Vegetable soups, tomato soups. We have one woman that swears that it's the best enchilada meat. She'll take that and a package of taco seasoning, put it in the slow cooker, and she swears that's the best enchilada meat. So
that sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's versatile. That's what a lot of people love with it, and a lot of people just drink it straight out of the jar. It's not like you have to add liquor to this just to drink it.
Right.
My wife likes it with beer, but yeah, it's unique in that sense.
We were here at our launch party. Those went over pretty well. That was fun.
Oh, yeah.
So you have one SKU. Does it stay one product forever? Or do you have other products that you guys are thinking about?
No, we've got other products. Our pickles is where
you do. Okay, so that is not over for you. You want to come back to that?
No, it's kind of funny because we had, our family kind of watches this and somewhat from a distance. Some of them are involved, some of them aren't. And my brother-in-law came over the other day because we had borrowed some tables for a festival that we were working.
Yeah.
And he saw we had our trailer wraps, with our logo on it. And he's like, wow. He's like, it's kind of funny how this started out as this was the side product.
Yeah.
This wasn't even meant to be the featured product.
Right.
But at some point, we've been trying to find a co-packer that will do the pickles for us because it's a significant investment to try to have them produced at a reasonable price point.
Right.
But I found someone down in Texas who can produce them, but right now there's a major glass shortage. So once he gets caught up on his existing,
there's a supply chain issue on packaging all over the place.
We're hoping that we can get back into that soon. But we've also got some other cocktail mixes that we're working on. I won't go into those now.
Okay, but exciting.
Because again, once you go down this path, you want to figure out additional SKUs that you can bring to market. Because you're figuring out the distribution, you're figuring out the sales channels, and so if you can come up with additional products that people enjoy, why not bring those to market?
This is great. What's the long-term vision? You're still working a full-time job. Do you want to stop doing that at some point?
Yeah, this becomes my full-time job at some point.
This becomes your full-time job.
We don't ever envision us selling this company. I plan on doing this till the day I die.
Yeah.
We enjoy it. It's fun.
You love it.
Yeah, totally. And it's even like we did the Stillwater food truck extravaganza, and I like to try to figure out how.
This was just last weekend, right?
It was, yep.
Yeah.
And I like to figure out how can we try to, really drum up brand awareness.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting because we went through and, I told my wife I had this idea, and I don't say they're great ideas at times because she'll tell me they're dumb ideas, but they're creative ideas.
It's her job to kind of check you, right?
Absolutely. So I told her, I said, well, they're looking for a gold sponsor for one of their events. And I said, it's a couple $1,000s. I said, but if we can, sell Bloody Marys, I said, we can likely make our money back doing that.
Right.
And so, but then I said, we still get the brand awareness that comes along with that. So there was a lot of hurdles to go through, but I contacted the Stillwater Chamber of Commerce, and I, kind of gave them my idea, and they talked about it for a couple of days, and they said, yeah, we'd love to do it. So we went through, and like I said, it was a lot of hurdles to get through because you got to get permits from the state. I had to get our own liquor liability license, insurance, policy. But it was kind of fun to be able to
all
put
the things
it.
you don't, all the things you don't think about, like as an entrepreneur, and it's not necessarily the fun stuff, but these are the pieces of the business that have to get done.
He was smart enough to know that, I mean, if we didn't go through this process, the state, the county, Washington County could come in, do an inspection and shut us down. And it's like, that's the last thing I want after you've invested this much time and money.
Right.
But it was kind of cool because the inspector, even at one point, I called him up to ask him a question about, kind of a health thing related to what we were doing. And finally, I'd written out all of our operational procedures, and because I had to make sure that the staff knew exactly what they were doing. They all kind of had their own job, and so I walked him through, all of our operational procedures, and he's like, "Wow," he's like, "That was really well thought out." So he was, to even have the inspectors say that, and then so we had throughout the festival, we had about 15 people working for us, and it was chaotic. I mean,
okay, so you're at the Stillwater Festival. What happens when you get your first customer?
Yeah, we got our first customer, and it was comical at best because I sat there and I watched 10 people try to figure out how to make one Bloody Mary, and I had already walked them through how to do it. I was probably nerves and just figuring out who's going to do exactly what. But and we have glasses that have our logo on it. So I actually told the guy, I said, "This is on me." I said, "Just for you having to wait that long to get your first Bloody Mary." I said,
customer service.
No, totally, and he laughed and he just got a kick out of it too because he thought it was fun to be, and it's as you think about this,
he kind of became a part of the story, right? And
and it's and it was kind of interesting because I mean it's not like I had anybody I could just bounce ideas off of when we thought about doing Bloody Marys at a festival because I've never even seen it done.
Right.
And it's so it's kind of cutting new ground, and it's kind of cool to go out and figure out how do you do something like that.
Do you like to do that? Do you like to cut new ground?
Oh yeah. It's I've got some other ideas I'm cooking in my mind that I'm working on. So and I called up my wife the other day and I said, okay, you're probably going to tell me this is a dumb idea, but I said I've already talked to some of our partners, and they like the idea, so let's see where it goes. But yeah, so it's we have a lot of fun with it.
So then how did the rest of the festival go?
Oh, it went extremely well. We teamed up with Tonka Vodka. They were actually our sponsor for the vodka. Great. So one of the things I talked to them about was negotiating a deal on, getting, a good discount on vodka, but we put up some advertising on our tent for them, so
win-win.
Totally. And so we completely overbought on vodka. Yeah. So we've got enough for the other events that we're doing throughout the summer, but we overstaffed, we bought stuff, which is okay. I would rather be in that position where you're figuring it out and you're in a position where you're going to be successful regardless.
That's right.
And it was it's rewarding when you have I talked to a woman by the name of Robin she's the president for the Greater Stillwater Chamber of Commerce, and I talked to her a few times throughout the day, and she came over as we were packing up and leaving, and she said to me, she goes, "I got to tell you, it was very impressive to see your booth, the way it was all laid out, very professional." And she said it was really cool to interact with your people. She said they were all fun, and she just said it was a pleasure to have you guys around.
It's got to feel really good, totally. Like with everything you put into this.
Something like that, when you put that much work and effort into it, I mean, it was phenomenal to receive that kind of compliment. So.
What's the big vision for this? Where do you see, does the brand stay Kickled Mary with these new products that you're thinking of launching? Where do you see yourself?
Kickled Mary is going to be still one of the primary products, and I mean it still has the opportunity to go national as well. Look at that.
Does Kickled Mary stay a product name or a brand name?
Well, for now, it's going to stay probably the brand and the product. And we actually have a registered trademark on Kickled Mary because, at some point, I mean, if we want to, I don't know if we're ever going to go to Amazon, but if we do, I know it's a very competitive space in Amazon. So we want to make sure that we never had to worry about, losing our brand recognition, our brand awareness. I mean, we spent a lot of time and a lot of money. And I mean, this is building a brand around a product that sells itself. And so we want to protect that, and that's kind of where it's been. And we'll continue to go down that path because the actual name of our company is Old World Canning Company, but we initially set that up so it would be the parent company for many brands to come underneath it. So it's kind of the vision's starting to play out, and I mean it's again, there's never been like do we want to get national? Absolutely. Do we want to get to that point and be kind of say that it's pretty cool getting here. That's kind of I would say it's probably one of the visions at this point. I mean, even when we started out, there wasn't a specific vision. It's like, let's see if we can build a product and build a brand and see where it goes. So that's kind of, and now it's that we're doing this, we're having fun with it. It's okay. Let's once we start to get distribution set up for this, then we can take the time and start to work on some of the other ideas that we have cooking. So.
What advice do you have for founders who, where you were, a couple of years ago and like, I've got this idea, I think it's cool, I'm not exactly sure where it's going to go. What would you tell them?
Start small and kind of, test the waters, right? And it's, having the courage to go out and do it, number one. figuring out, how do you do it? Because I mean, even like when we started this, again, it's a lot of research because you've never done something like this before.
Right.
So we had to go out and get what's called a cottage food license to
Yep.
be able to produce in the state of Minnesota to even bring it to a farmer's market.
Right.
So it's taking the time to research how do you make the right moves, the right steps along the way, and then start to build on that, right? Because even like I said, once we figured out we had a product, that could sell, then it was a matter of, like with the pickles, it was figuring out how do we bring that to the next step, which was the acidified food. So each product's going to have its own, concerns, challenges, limitations.
Yeah.
But it's having, the mental fortitude
Right.
to push past it. There's going to be roadblocks, but do you let that stop you, or is that more of a motivation to figure out how to make it happen
Yes.
going forward? So,
Yeah.
and that's really what that's my advice, right? Don't ever let anybody tell you no. I mean, people are going to come up and they're going to say that's a bad idea. We've had people tell us that.
I'm sure you have.
But here we are. I mean, we're in 80 different retail outlets and basically across 3 different states right now, because my wife and I like to vacation in Florida, and we actually have one restaurant and 2 shops that service down there. And it's kind of the woman who does sales for us. Her name is Rose Tenuta, and she actually, we met her down in Florida. So she's doing sales for us in Kenosha now, but she's also going to do sales for us down in Florida for 4 months when she goes down there to winter. So I mean, it's again, you never know where the opportunities are going to come from. This was by chance. We weren't even looking to hire a salesperson, but now, I mean, we're working. I think we've got through. And one thing I will say, credit to brand builders. It was Pods. Is it
Pod Foods?
Pod Foods.
Yeah.
We're working with them, so we'll probably get distribution set up through them for
really
Western
exciting.
or for Eastern Wisconsin, which plays in perfectly for us, for her where she's at. So, we should have that distribution channel set up in about 6 weeks or so.
That's wonderful.
But yeah, so it's and it's the challenge of trying to figure out how to make all this work.
Yeah.
So we actually just we went into Haskell's, and we're all 12 of their stores now. And Brian Haskell actually invited us to come on. They rent one of the boats on the Stillwater Riverboat.
Yep.
And he's got about 30 different vendors they bring in. He invited us to come in, but that opens up doors for other distribution channels.
Yeah.
So it's always looking at, how can you, what are the opportunities that you have that you can utilize to better build your brand.
Right.
Whether it's getting out and doing the farmers markets, whether it's sampling at somewhere like Keg and Case or a liquor store. I mean, you really got to put a lot of time and effort into it to really build a
Right.
brand. But it just doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen if you don't put the effort into it.
So I really actually just want to commend you. There's a few things as I really listen to you tell your story that stick out for me that make me believe that you're going to accomplish all the things you want to accomplish. And one is your belief and your passion about the product that you make.
Yep.
Right? Like that has to be the foundation of what you do, and you have to know that what is in this jar is a superior product, right?
Yep.
The other thing is your sort of nimbleness and your kind of responsiveness to what comes at you, right? When something doesn't work, how can we pivot? What can we do with this? How can we shift this? And then I think just your tenacity and like, I'm going to make this work. This is it. And I'm going to go after it and do what I need to do.
No, even like yesterday I got a call from the shipping company because we actually had 3 pallets of product delivered down to Kenosha, Wisconsin. And it's kind of a self-serve storage. Well, the driver decided he was going to refuse to actually deliver the product. And that was actually on Tuesday. So, of course, I had to spend, a couple hours, last night working on figuring out how do we get it delivered. Because, right, the gal who does sales for me, she's out of product. So, you just have to figure out how to make it work.
That's right.
And it's, again, there's always going to be challenges, but are you up for it? And you just gotta have the intestinal fortitude to get past it.
Yeah, good on you. Well, we're lucky to have you be a part of our first cohort here at Brand Builders.
Thank you.
You guys are definitely one of our top sellers, and it's really fun to watch people experience your product for the first time. So congratulations, and thanks again, Brian, for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
So you guys, this was our Brand Builder session with Kickled Mary. Thanks for joining us, and come back next time when we sit down with our next brand. We'll see you at the next show.